Sit down.
Bitchin'.
Hey, what is up, internet friends? This is AJ's Figures with my first video. I've decided to do this video on the latest release of Venom from Marvel Legends. This may be the best Venom figure that Hasbro has put out, in my opinion. It's got great presence, it's got that classic Todd look that I absolutely love. And it's also just, yeah, it fits in a lot better with some of the other Marvel Legends because it's got less detail. I know that sounds bad, but it's not got all the texture that the King in Black Venom has got. It's a little bit flatter. It's a little bit... I don't know. I don't know if perhaps I'm a little bit biased because it does have a little bit of that kind of Toy Biz feel with the original Sinister Six Venom that they put out, but hey. Enough talk, let's get into the actual review. Taking a closer look at Venom. I mean, what can I say? He's really cool. This is a cool figure. He does have that flat kind of Hasbro look about him, and his muscles are a bit bubbly and weird in places, and his chest is a bit bigger than the previous release, but it's still not quite to my liking. I think it should be a bit broader. I understand that they cut a little bit away to allow for this butterfly joint that we've got here, but if we look closer at the head, it's a really good head sculpt, and I think that's really important for a figure, especially when there's not a lot going on, like with Venom, where all he's really got is black with the white symbol. The head sculpt is important, and this head sculpt is a win. This looks so much like the Todd McFarlane artwork. It's got that big sinister grin, the big white eyes, the teeth are all showing really well, they're nicely painted. Maybe a couple of splotches here and there where it's a bit fuzzy, but I think it looks great overall. You can see here the gum line is painted in red, and then the teeth are that bone color. It looks good. The eyes are nice and clean. Great. I love it. You can see here it's got the sculpt for the corners of the mouth like a snake. And if you have a look under here, the jaw is kind of hollow, which allows for you to bring his head right forward so he can look at you like that, nice and evil looking. Oh, it's brilliant. Really, really good. What a win. If we have a look at the rest of the figure, it's, yeah, there's not really much to say. It's got the musculature here. If we have a look at the feet, it is those stockings rather than the bare Venom toes from the movie sculpt that was then reused for King in Black. And over here, there is reuse from the 90s animated Venom. It doesn't bother me too much. It kind of breaks it up a little bit. I know it's not accurate to the source material. If anything, I think it adds a little bit of detail in a otherwise detailless figure. Now, if we have a look here at the symbol, like I was talking about earlier, it is a bit pinched in. It's not quite as big and exciting looking. It's a little bit odd and angular, which doesn't really work for me. I don't know what they could have done. Maybe made it a bit thinner to make it look a little bit more sleek. I don't know. When we turn the figure around, you can see that the spider symbol is really nicely painted on the back, actually. They've painted on the butterfly joints to try and make it a bit less broken up, I would say. And they've done a really good job. It looks a lot better than the Amazon exclusive figure, that's for sure. Now when you move the joints, it obviously will break up the spider symbol a little bit, but I still think it looks pretty good. You can get them into that hunched position. It does look a little bit unsightly on the joints again, but you can line them up if you really want to. I have noticed that mine is a little bit offset on one of the joints, but it's not really that noticeable, and I'm sure it's just like that for my copy. For yours, I'm sure it'll be okay. And it's painted all up into the joint here, so that when you move the joint, it's not going to break up. But I have noticed that down here at the bottom, mine's has gotten really scuffed up from using the abdominal crunch, and I've seen a few other people's have been like that as well. If they could find a way of doing this joint so that it doesn't damage the spider symbol, that would be really nice. It's a bit unsightly. And another unsightly thing I would say is this diaphragm joint is not the best designed. It's very bubbly, it's very strangely shaped, and I don't feel like it actually is sculpted all the way up in there so that you can move it and it gets pretty gappy, like a shelf, but it does have some nice movement to make up for that, but I've seen other companies do diaphragm joints better than this, including Hasbro themselves. Here are Venom's accessories. He does come with fisted hands that I had on him during the previous segment, but he does have these clawing hands as well, which are absolutely amazing. These come on him in the packaging. I do love the position of the fingers and everything, looking really splayed out and just aggressive. He does have a horizontal hinge on there, and this is the other head that he comes with, which is basically just the head that the Amazon exclusive comes with. I'm kind of torn with this head. I do like the idea, but it does look a little bit too specific for me. Like the positioning of the tongue and everything. If the tongue was going straight forward, it would look more like a yelling head, but because it's going above, it looks more dynamic. I don't know how I feel about it. The shape of the eyes doesn't really work either for this look for Venom, because this is meant to be more classic, and the teeth look very stubby. I don't really know. But it does have its kind of uses. So I'm not entirely against it. It looks good for jumping or more dynamic poses. But the positioning of the neck peg, it does mean that he is very limited with looking up. And the sculpt for this head sculpt, it doesn't really allow for any kind of extra wiggle room, so to speak. This is Venom with the clawing hands on, the open hands, and it just, yeah, it works really well. I really like the kind of display options that it allows for. This left hand is a little bit more, I don't know, the shape of it's a little bit more specific, whereas this one I prefer. It's more open, more aggressive looking. So yeah, the other one being a bit too specific a gesture doesn't quite work for me, but it does look good for some poses. This is Venom with his alternative head on. And yeah, this looks great. It does look nice, but I would have preferred to swap this head out with a more contemporary head sculpt, because this is meant to be the classic Venom, so I would prefer if they gave us a Bagley head sculpt from the 90s, like the late 90s going into the early 2000s, because yeah, this is meant to be the classic Venom. Definitive, I'm guessing. Until Hasbro decide to give us another one. As we get into the articulation segment, Venom does have a double ball peg at the head, one in the neck and one in the head sculpt, and it allows for some good wiggle room, some decent gesturing. He doesn't really look up much, but he looks down a fair amount, which looks really good, and thanks to that hollow jaw, it really helps. But looking up, it's pretty pathetic. When you get him crouched down, he's kind of just looking at everyone's ankles. If we pop it off, you can see why it's like that. The ball peg at the bottom is far too recessed into the neck. It should be closer to the surface of the neck, and that would have allowed for more range, but for some reason, Hasbro like to make the peg really long and put the ball down into the body and just have the neck as this cavity, and it means that when you move the head, it doesn't really move much. That's him looking down, that's him looking up. They need to fix that going forwards, because it is a problem. I know that a lot of people would prefer the disc, where the head can look all the way up and all the way down, but then has no pivoting whatsoever, but I love that neck pivot. It allows for more gestured posing. Moving down the figure, we do have the butterfly hinge that goes in and out. Got a hinge at the shoulder that moves in and out. And then we've got the swivel going into the shoulder. We've got a swivel at the upper bicep. And then at the elbow, we have a double joint that allows the arm to move up just past 90 degrees. But this is where we get into my biggest gripe with this figure, and a lot of other Marvel Legends, sadly, is gummy joints. Rubbery ass plastic that is just a pain to work with. It can allow for your figure to end up warping. It's worse when it's in knees, more so than elbows, but as you'll see later on, this figure also has that problem. But gummy joints drive me insane. I don't understand why this happens. I've seen Shartimus Prime mention it in one of his videos that it's a problem with the mixture. And if that is the case, then, you know, they should have learned by now. But moving on, we've got a hinge and swivel at the wrists. At the chest, we've got a ball peg that allows for a really nice range of motion here. It allows him to crunch forward that much and back that much. And then moving down, we do have an ab crunch, the upside down ab crunch, which allows for a really good crunch on this figure in particular. You can get Venom into some really dynamic poses. Now, I do think that down here, that should be where the ball joint is, and then up at the top, have an ab crunch. Because then you'd allow the figure to turn and then crunch, as opposed to crunch and then turn. I've seen Anthony's Customs mention this a few times. Moving down to the hips, Venom can bring his hips out this far, which isn't great. They can go up this far, and his hips can move back that far. He has a swivel up the upper thigh, and then at his knees, the gummy ass knees, his legs can bend this far. And then down at the ankle, he has a hinge that moves down this far and up this far. And then that beautiful ankle pivot. If we get Venom to do the Glen Webb, this is how far Venom can do the splits with his feet firmly planted on the floor. I wish Glen Webb would have been able to see this figure. He would have lost his mind. Rest in peace. This is our new Venom standing next to the King in Black 2-pack Venom on the left. And then on the right, we have, on the same body mold, the Sonyverse movie Venom. Here we have Venom standing next to the 3-pack Daredevil and the Renew Your Vows 2-pack Spider-Man. I just love how these guys look standing next to each other. This is a dream team of mine and I'd love to see it in one of the movies one day. And here he is next to the retro card Carnage and the black suited Spider-Man from the retro card wave as well. Now for some reason, with the black suited Spider-Man, I loved the cosmetic in the original PS1 game of Spider-Man. I would dress in that and then do the Venom levels. It just looked really cool to me. With this Carnage, I think the body looks great, but the head sculpt with this Venom doesn't quite match. I would love to get one of the more classic looking heads. I think that would rock. Here's our new Venom next to the classic Sinister 6 Venom by Toy Biz on the left. And on the right, we've got the Marvel Select Venom. That, up until recently, was my favorite Venom figure of all time. I loved it. The accessories are amazing. But I think this new figure might steal the top spot for me just because of that classic look and the plus of the articulation, which this Marvel Select figure does not have. My final thoughts. This is a great addition to the collection. It's a great figure. I think it might be my favorite Venom action figure to date anyway. Its shelf presence is there. It's got that classic edge, but it's also got the bonus of the articulation, which takes it above the Diamond Select figure for me. Yeah, it's so dynamic looking. As you can see in these shots, I had a lot of fun posing him around. And because it's that classic Venom, the spaghetti webs just look brilliant for him. I've also done a couple of head swaps with him, which you'll see coming up in a second. Here we have him with the King in Black head sculpt. It looks great. It really works for this figure, and it gives him a little bit more, funnily enough, a little bit more articulation. Range of motion in the neck is increased with this head sculpt. He can look up far more, as you can see here, him roaring at the sky. Just looking great. I think this is a must if you want to have a classic Venom in your collection. He looks great alongside the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man and all of the other host of characters that you might have on your shelf. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please do give me a like and yeah, stick around. I've got some more pieces coming in soon, so I'll get them reviewed for you guys. In the meantime, stay geek, and I'll catch you in the next one.